Start for Trice. That's Chase, and what a start for Cincinnati. And he has the football. It's a move on. Bijan Robinson, he's got a hand. His first touchdown. Gibbs out of the backfield right away. Oh, yeah, there's no question that he was grabbed. They got ridiculous. They got Gibbs one-on-one with Andrew Van Ginkel in space, and that was it.
And this is, again, it's man-to-man. It's one-on-one, and he's underneath. He loses his balance. Block Bowers is one of those guys that has a huge... And this is...
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast presented by the FantasyHolics Podcast Network. Coming at you live on the YouTube channel. I'm Bo. That is Brant today. And as you can see, we've got a very special episode going. It says Holics Rookie Mock Draft. Not quite, Brant. Mock drafts are cool, but I think on this podcast, what we're kind of looking for here is a real draft where there's real money involved, Brant, or this is a FantasyHolics run league. This is a league you and I co-own in, so there's real opinions going on here. This is 11 real other people that were involved in this draft. But yeah, last week we had the NFL, or 2 weeks ago we had the NFL draft. Last weekend we started drafting in this league and a couple others, Brant. And for the degenerates like you and I, we're in full-fledged rookie draft season. So I felt it was more genuine to come at you guys with a real draft rather than a mock.
Yes, a real draft. This was a great time. I couldn't believe that everybody apparently in this league was a degenerate because we got it done. There was no timers on these clocks and we ran it through it. We ran 2 drafts that I was involved in 1 weekend, getting them both done. It was actually went a lot quicker than I expected. This one here, you and me had 8 picks, I think it was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 picks we had. Lots of trades, lots of moves were going on in this draft. Lots of talking. Some questionable offers were sent around in this league. But it was definitely good to get the first 2 out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely, Brant. And before we get into this league or this draft and start talking about it, it is worth mentioning it is a Superflex PPR tight end premium league. For those of you that aren't familiar, that just means bonus reception points for tight ends, which does make that position a little bit more valuable. But again, legit rookie draft here. These are teams that we pay deep attention to in the season. This is leagues that we all want to win amongst the FantasyHolics. We're going to try to talk about another if my tech savvy is good enough to get the other one on the screen. We'll see how that goes. But so first and foremost, Brant, I think even in a Superflex draft, 101, pretty clear cut and dry. It's Genty across the board in almost every situation. I think the one caveat you and I have kind of mentioned is maybe IDP leagues. Potentially you could see Travis Hunter move to the 101, but still at this point, haven't seen it. So no real surprise there, Brant. Genty going 1. At number 2, you had Hampton. How'd you feel about that? Was that a surprise to you, or did you think that's probably par for the course?
It's probably par for the course. A lot of people aren't sure on Hunter there. As you guys see, we took him at the 103, but most people aren't completely sold that he's the one there. Most people aren't. You still got BTJ there. So in Jacksonville. So a lot of people weren't sold on Hunter moving up. So I think Hampton is just par for the course right there.
Okay. All right, so yeah, you did bring up Travis Hunter, and I want to talk about that pick a little bit, obviously, because we can talk about the cognitive process that went into you and I drafting him at the 103. We did trade our third starting quarterback in Baker Mayfield, along with Jalen Waddle for Puka Nacua and a pick. So we were stuck with just two quarterbacks going into this draft, knowing we needed a third at some point. What, in your mind, and I can rationalize it for myself too, but in your mind, Brant, why Travis Hunter over Cam Ward in a super flex here?
Well, with us, we didn't see a outstanding rushing upside, that Konami code, as people call it, in a quarterback in this draft that could be eligible for that 104. We knew that. We both talked about it. We were pretty sure that Dart or Will Howard would fall. We're not. I think we're a playoff team. I don't know if we're a championship caliber team. Obviously, things have, balled out. Some people ball out during the season that you least expect. We do have Javonte Williams. Could ball out this season, probably not, but he could.
I can't believe that's the name we bring up for our team, but all right.
I can only see that part of the roster.
Okay, all right.
I didn't pull it up on the phone yet. So my thought process was, and you kind of left it, you and me were in talk. We're like, well, we need a receiver. We have a good young receiving core. I'm going to pull that up as I talk. But my rationality with this one was, we have Trevor Lawrence. Let's get that stack. That is years to come stack. We know that it's going to go. Yes, we have Puka. We had Zay. I don't know if we had Puka, if we were still in conversations with that.
We had Puka when we were on the board.
We had Puka. We had Zay. We had Rashid Rice, which is still a question mark there on Rashid Rice of how is he going to come back out from the injury. And then there was no real depth. Now, mind you, in this league, we're starting three receivers and three flex spots. So we're like, Travis Hunter has to be the way to go here. Get that stack and get moving forward in the future with us.
Yeah, so for me, again, realistically, and for the folks at home that weren't in our war room, so to speak, we were going back and forth between Travis Hunter and Tetaroa McMillan. Those were kind of where we were at. We wanted that bona fide stud wide receiver, like you had mentioned. And I think what it came down to for me, obviously, I deferred the pick to you because I was going to pound my fist a little bit later, which we'll talk about that here in a second. But I kind of deferred this pick to you, and you actually shocked me. I kind of thought you were going to go T-Mac. You went Hunter for the stack like you talked about, which I was super thrilled about because I think Travis Hunter is a unicorn in this class. Granted, there were still some murky waters. We were still a little nervous only 7 days after the actual draft about what his role was going to be. But if this guy's on the field 90% of the time for offense, I think you're talking about top 15 wide receiver upside. I know that's crazy to say when Trevor Lawrence hasn't been great and BTJ's coming off an amazing rookie season opposite of him. But Travis Hunter is just that special. I really do believe that. And so for myself, it came down to, one, I don't necessarily love this quarterback class. And you and I both knew that in the second round, we were going to have a chance at quarterbacks, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. So we punted on the quarterback position now and went Travis Hunter. So again, Cam Ward went at 4, no real surprise. Travion Henderson did go at the 5 in front of Tet McMillan at the 6, Brant. In your opinion, was Tet McMillan, should he have been off the board before Henderson, or do you like the Henderson over McMillan take?
So I'm going to jump all the way back to 4. I'm going to jump to the Cam Ward because honestly, I think Henderson and McMillan both could be in the conversation to be ahead of Ward. Now, OGJH here, his thought process in my mind is he didn't really have a quarterback. He had Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins, so he had the Atlanta quarterbacks, and then he had Stafford, who's getting up there in age. He just lost Will Levis. So he does have Mason Rudolph, but I felt like he went with that pick because he needed the quarterback. Tet in my mind is the 4 to 6 range. It's position of need right here. I think your 1, 2, 3 is Genty, Hampton, Hunter, and then 4 through 6 is a great landing spot. And I think you could be talking about some of these other guys in the back half of this first round that could be in these 4 through 6 spots. So I think this is a very, very good way to go. I'd have to go back and look at the rosters. But yeah, I do think that this is about where it should go. Maybe these 3 names can be interchanged a little bit, but I do think 4, 5, and 6 is exactly where it should be.
Okay. So again, and I'll just finish out the first round here, and then we'll kind of go back and talk about it a little bit. You had McMillan at the 6, Judkins at the 7. Caleb Johnson was our pick at the 108. Tyler Warren at the 1-9, RJ Harvey at the 10, Loveland at the 11, and Emeka Ibuka at the 12. So here's what I kind of want to talk about in the first, and I genuinely believe this to be of some truth and rationale. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson all look to be the new starting running backs for their respective teams. In New England, you got Travion Henderson, who's going to compete with Ramondre Stevenson. Judkins is going to have to compete with another rookie in Hampton and Jerome Ford, and then Caleb Johnson in Pittsburgh with Jalen Warren. Now, these guys, all three had similar draft capital and early day 2 picks. My thing is this, Brant, and we did go with Caleb Johnson at the 1-8. I think he probably would have been you and I's pick, regardless if the other 2 names were on the board, simply because pre-draft rankings, you and I were a little opposite of status quo. You and I both had him behind Ashton Genty at the 1B or the 2. It's 2. There's a clear differentiation between Genty, but Caleb Johnson's one of those backs. He's a bruiser. He runs north and south really well. Needed to get to the right offense that would fit the scheme, and I think he fell into the perfect spot. I was going to pound the table for Caleb Johnson if it came to it. You were obviously right there with me. I didn't have to. But Caleb Johnson at the 108 was a position of need for you and I as well. And I think he's got a chance to be one of the best running backs in this class.
Yeah, and with the Judkins and Henderson, if you remember last time that we were talking about 2 Ohio State running backs going on day 2, that was Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, where they had an amazing 1-2 punch coming out. And I think that these
that
2
was
guys,
Georgia, not Ohio State.
That was Georgia, but I'm sorry. The same team. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's where you could see these 2 going. Caleb Johnson is in the perfect offense that fits the scheme. We run the ball. We run downhill. We want to run it through your throat. And that's what Caleb Johnson brings to the table. And he does have some pretty decent pass catching ability. I still think that will go to Warren to begin. But I think you could slowly see Johnson really pulling away with the reins. It kind of stacks the boxes a little bit more with the Pickens trade, just because you don't have 2 deep ball receivers out there, and DK and Pickens. But I still think Caleb Johnson was the way to go.
Okay. All right. I'm going to skip ahead to the second round. You got Luther Burden at the 2-1. We were on the board of the 2-2. We did address that quarterback need with Dart, Higgins, Golden, Scatabo, Harris, Besh. Okay, I went all the way down to the 2-7 for a reason. I genuinely think Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins, Golden, Harris, and Besh are all kind of right there in that same tier. They're going into an offense where we're not 100% sure what their role is going to be, not 100% sure where they're going to be on the pecking order, but they all clearly have value. So I do think in the second round, Brant, as far as wide receiver goes, it's a whatever you're feeling like situation. It's wherever you are the most comfortable. Burden, obviously, could be the best in that group, or he could be the worst. There's plenty of other mouths to feed there in Chicago. Same thing with Jaden Higgins. He's going in. Nico Collins is clearly going to be the one, but does he beat out Noel? How does that shake out there in Houston? Golden, obviously, going in the first round was great for him, but that's like the most congested wide receiving grouping of all time in Green Bay. Harris in Los Angeles, again, Ladd McConkey. All he's got to do is beat out Quentin Johnston. Should be pretty easy. And then Besh catches everything. The Raiders outside of Jacoby Myers were kind of vacant. Well, Brock Bowers obviously is the given. I'm talking about just for wide receiver core here. Don't kill me. I'm not trying to talk bad about your guy there, Brant. But Besh, again, falls into a spot where outside of Jacoby Myers, there's not really much competition. So how good is Besh? So again, I think in the second round, if you're in a spot where you need wide receiver and you take any one of these guys, it's just your preference. Whatever study you've done there, wherever you're feeling most confident with quarterback situation, with long-term projection, you go there and you're fine. All right. All right, Brant, I want you to take us through our 2 picks. At the 2-2, we had Dart, and at the 2-5, we took Scatabo. What was the thought process there?
So you and me went back and forth a little bit with the Dart pick because we did discuss taking a receiver here because of how deep we have to start flexes and wide receivers. We thought maybe later in the draft we could address Will Howard. Maybe we could get a starter, but we knew that we had to solidify at least another starter. We were going into the season with Kyler Murray and Trevor Lawrence, and that was it. So on any bye weeks, at least 2 weeks, we weren't going to start 2 quarterbacks. So we knew we had to address it. And I think that we both wanted to address it with a receiver that, with a team that actually has a very well-proven receiver. and neighbors. And so we wanted to address Dart. It's kind of funny that I didn't even realize this. It didn't click with me when we did it. It still didn't click with me until I just read it. We ended up stacking the guys there in New York in the second round. For some reason, it didn't click. I pounded the table a little harder for Scatabo here. I wanted to address the running back. I truly believe that this guy could easily beat out Tracy there for the one spot. He does have he has good pass catching ability. I think this is a guy that we could be talking about finishing in the top 5 of running backs in this rookie draft as a top 5 running back. I think he's a great runner. I don't quite trust New York, but I do think with Tracy's fumble issues and everything else, Scatabo should come out and automatically be that 1B in a two-headed monster back there. And I really did want this guy.
And again, it was a position of need for us. Javonte Williams was our 3rd running back going into this draft. So it was definitely something we had to look to address. So again, left off at the 2-7, 208, Shadur Sanders did not slide in our draft as long as he did in the real draft. Jalen Milroe at the 2-9, Taylor, the tight end for the Jets at the 3-10, Shuck at the 2-11, and then Rayshall Tootin to round out the second round. Quarterback run kind of went there, Brant. I think if I had to like just jump in those guys' heads, this is the run of like the guys that have a chance to maybe become starters in this season if they beat out the competition, right? Which granted, Seattle did sign Darnold, but then they go out and draft Milroe, and we've talked about it before. Darnold's really only guaranteed 1 year in Seattle, so kind of I think the run on quarterbacks was kind of there, and then it was kind of Pickens. Nothing crazy stands out there to me, Brant. Anything there that you feel the need to talk about? Or are you ready to jump into the third?
Sanders I'm going to just bring up Sanders because he didn't slide in our draft, like you said. Sanders, if you feel comfortable with the fact of how he was in college and everything, and you believe in your scouting ability, Sanders could easily be the starter day 1 in Cleveland. Yes, I know they drafted Gabriel and everything else, which did not go in our draft. But Sanders could easily become the number 1 QB. So this could be an outstanding value pick or a complete waste of a second-round pick. It's just how you feel about him. But the rest of that, it really shapes out. Tootin is probably one of my favorite picks in this draft, just because you and me have talked about it. There's no draft ties to Bigsby or ETN in that locker room. So Tootin could easily carve out some type of role early in his career.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in the third round, I'm just going to read through the whole round real quick. We'll kind of discuss our picks a little bit and then any other shocks. Jalen Noel at the 3-1, then Jaden Blue, Sampson, Giddens, Neal, Quinn Ewers, Terrence Ferguson, Eric Arayo, Alec Ioman, Jalen Royals, Will Howard, and Rashad Smith to round out the 3, Brant. So obviously, again, we have some picks here. I'm going to steal your thunder here. I'm going to talk about our picks a little bit. So anything else in the third round that stuck out to you that you love that you need to talk about here? Otherwise, I'll jump into our picks.
I just find it crazy that Ewers went over Will Howard in this draft, just because Will Howard has an easier path in my mind, I guess. Concussion Tua.
Yeah, I was going to say one wrong fall for Tua. Quinn Ewers is the starter of Miami with some pretty nice weapons. So I get it. I'm
going to hit on one more name. Smith there in the Kansas City backfield could easily. I mean, right now they're starting a 7th round draft pick in Isaiah Pacheco. Mm-hmm. Smith could easily become a starter in an outstanding fast-paced offense. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. So for us, again, Terrence Ferguson's been my guy since the tight end episode I did on the podcast several weeks ago, months ago, actually, at this point, where I really dove into the tight end position. And we did kind of talk back and forth for a split second about Arroyo, the tight end for the Seahawks. But the Rams had their first pick in the 2nd round due to a really smart trade on the Rams' part, dumb trade on the Falcons' part. And their first position they addressed was Terrence Ferguson. That was their first pick of this year's draft for the Rams. Sean McVay, you got to trust him offensively. He puts out some fantasy relevant stuff. And again, tight end premium for us. That was something we had to take a dart throw. Then we were sitting here at the 3-9 and 3-10 going, this wide receiver room is still really deep. And there's still some guys that are going to make impacts. Again, Alec Ioman, they from Stanford was a wide receiver Brant really liked. So this was kind of like, hey, Brant, I'm trusting your gut on this one. We went with him here because, again, Cam Ward has no prior experience with any wide receiver in Tennessee. It's a dart throw who could be the guy. Obviously, betting favorites are Calvin Ridley, but after that, it's wide open. And then, again, who doesn't want to tie a wide receiver to Patrick Mahomes? Rashee Rice could be suspended. We own Rashee Rice. So for us, it's kind of a pivot play if that happens to Rice there. So, again, third round, I feel like you get some value that could be flex plays. And again, Terrence Ferguson, I think when we talk about rookie drafts that happen in August, I think that could be way higher depending on what his role shakes out and what comes out in camp. But I think we did really well in the third round as well, Brant. So, all right, moving to the fourth round. I want to go through this round really quick so we can go get our draft where we're not in each other's brains and kind of talk about how that one went briefly as well. So in the fourth round, you had Bond, who's currently a free agent due to his off-the-field stuff, but if he gets picked up someplace, could be really electric. You had Fannin, tight end for Cleveland, Ollie Gordon, running back for Miami, James, the running back for San Fran, Kevin Williams for New England, Bryant for Denver, Restrepo for Tennessee, Montgoff for Chicago, Savion Williams for Green Bay, Tasala for Detroit, Horton for your Seahawks, Brant, and then Jacquez Hunter to finish it out for the Rams. I think I know where you're going to go here, Brant, but what was your favorite pick of that fourth round and why?
Well, my favorite pick is Williams there in New England. There's no true alpha there. I know Diggs is there, but there's no ties with Drake May. He just got there in town. I think it was a 1 or maybe 2 year deal. Williams could easily, this is a guy that shocked a lot of people out there at the Senior Bowl and then had a great combine. This is a guy that could easily slide into the wide receiver 2 spot. I know Booty had a good time, couple good games last year. But yeah, I think Williams is one of my favorite. This is a guy that could be an instant impact in that offense.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brant. And I think, if I can't talk about the same one you talk about, my favorite pick was obviously ours with Savion Williams in Green Bay. Again, I know we talk about how congested that is, but this was a third round draft pick for Green Bay. Williams was electric out of the backfield at TCU. Jacobs, I know, is more than capable out of the backfield. But again, when it's really just Jacobs, Melton, Williams, and then Lloyd in the backfield in Green Bay, it does leave some work for somebody else. So getting Savion Williams for there, again, felt like a chance to potentially steal a lot of fantasy points if the cards fall right for us in Green Bay. So there's a 4-round draft here in a tight end premium super flex. Again, we kind of walked through what our rationale was, Brant. Let me see if I can get really quick over here to the other FantasyHolics league. That's
why you do that. I'm going to talk about Fannin there in Cleveland. This is a future pick in my mind. I absolutely love this pick. For Cleveland, fantasy wise. Njoku's only there, I think, 1 more year as his contract is up. Fannin brings the same capabilities that we thought of Njoku coming out. Highly electric, can play off the ball, can play in the slot. Great pass catcher. Good blocker. He's not a great blocker, but he is a good blocker. So that's another guy that he could slide really easily into that offense. That's kind of wide open too. You got Jerry Jeudy and then a few other names there. So those are that. And then the Hunter pick, while you still try to get it up, the Hunter pick is another. It's a dart throw because Seattle was missing a big part of their offense with DK leaving. So that Hunter is a very, very good pick.
All right. So again, we're already about 20 minutes into this episode, a little over 20. So we're going to fly through this one. It's only a 3-round draft. This one, Brant and I were obviously on our own respective teams. We don't co-own in this one. And so I'll walk you through my picks. Brant can walk you through his quickly. And then we'll just kind of talk about how the round went overall. So again, very similar first 4 picks to the last draft. You had Genty at 1, Hampton 2, Ward went 3, and Hunter did go 4 to me here. And just real quick, I'm not going to lie to you, Brant. This was the draft that I did want Cam Ward to fall to my pick at because I'm going into the season with just Drake May and Michael Penix as viable starters here, a very young roster quarterback wise. So I did want Cam Ward to slide to me. He didn't. Not upset for me to take Travis Hunter, as I already mentioned in the last draft. So no problems there. McMillan did go 5 right after Hunter, and then I was back on the board. Again, another running back needy team. I did go Judkins here, Brant. The new Nick Chubb role, very similar ability to Nick Chubb, hoping to get a workhorse running back in a Kevin Stefanski-led offense. And I just wanted to be a little bit different than where I was in FantasyHolics 3. Then between you and I, Travion Henderson went off the board, which led into your 2 back-to-backs, Brant.
Yeah, so I went into this draft with Vidal, Isaiah Davis, Najee Harris, Alexander Madison, Kenneth Gainwell, Kendre Miller as my running backs. Nothing. So when it came up to mine, I was sitting there and I was like, the guy there right in front of me offered me to trade up, and I told him, nope, there's 3 backs on the board. I'm taking 2 that are going to be left for me. So I had to go with Caleb Johnson and RJ Harvey, 2 guys that could possibly start on their team week 1. So I definitely went out and I pulled those 2 names, and I definitely needed to address the running back. And I think I did a great job right there off the rip with the best 2 names on the board.
Yeah. And again, I think realistically, outside of Scadabo, who's still not a guaranteed thing, I think Caleb Johnson and RJ Harvey are the 2 with the most draft capital, which does mean something, and the clearest path to work year 1. So I think he did great there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish out the first round, starting with my pick. I did take Dart here again. Anybody who's listened to this cast all offseason, I was not the biggest Dart truther. However, when the Giants trade up for Dart in the first round, make him a priority, that changes some things. I don't know if I see Dart on the field year 1 necessarily, maybe down the stretch if things aren't going great, but I did pull Dart here at the 110. I mentioned how I wanted Cam Ward to be there at the 1-4. It wasn't. So I had to address quarterback. I was on the board again at the 111. I traded that pick back for 2 in the second round, so I could have potentially waited had I have known I was going to do that trade for Jalen Milroe potentially, but I didn't know that was happening until after I made the pick. So then again, to round out the first, you had Ibuka and Colston Loveland go off the board there. Again, no crazy surprises with the exception of Tyler Warren falling to the 2-1. I'm not going to lie to you, Brant. There was a minute there when Albino Hippo was on the board there that I was praying that he didn't take Warren and he took Matthew Golden instead, because I did not want Matthew Golden. But as you can see, I did take Matthew Golden at the 2-2. First round running or wide receiver capital, felt the need I had to take him. And then I'm back on the board at the 2-3. Scadabo, again, you kind of talked about everything there was to talk about with Scadabo, but it was again, in my opinion, the last running back with a real clear path to week 1 even usage. So I snagged him. That was hard for me because Burden is my guy. Obviously, I couldn't have Burden if I went with those 2. So that did sting me a little bit, Brant. But Burden did go at the 2-4. Your guy, Tootin, went at the 2-5. Jaden Higgins, 2-6. Besh at the 2-7. Taylor at the 2-9 or 2-8, Milroe at the 2-9, Trey Harris 2-10, Shuck at the 2-11, and Jalen Blue at the 2-12. James went right in front of you at the 3-1, Brant. You took Neal, which I love. Go ahead and talk about Neal here.
I took Neal. I had Miller. I know Kamara's coming to the end of his career, possibly his end of time there in New Orleans. So I wanted to solidify another running back. As I said, I was needy. So I grabbed Neal here. And this is a guy that showed he could be a workhorse in college for Kansas. And so I think that he could have a path to carve out some type of role. I don't think this is a year 1 pick. I do think this is possibly a year 2 pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But again, that team's going to be very void of holes for a while. I don't think if Kamara rides off into the sunset and they have, Neal on the roster, I don't think they look to address running back. I think they'll let him have some years there. And I think that could be fantasy relevant. I don't know as though the Saints are going to be great anytime soon, but anytime you get a running back who's getting a lion's share, which I think he does next season, or not this coming season, but the next season, I think that's great for Neal. Ollie Gordon at the 3-3, DJ Gibbs at 3-4, Savion Williams at the 3-5, I did pull Sanders at 3-6. Again, I just think the opportunity is there for him to be a potential starter at some point for a Cleveland Browns team that probably wins about 6 games. So probably won't be great, but starting upside in a super flex league where I did need quarterback help. Royals went at the 3-7, Ferguson at the 3-9, Marks at the 3, Ferguson at the 3-8, Marks at the 3-9, Sampson at the 3-10, Will Howard at the 11, and then shockingly, Noel fell to the 3-12. So again, some subtle differences outside of the first round, but the first round in both of these are very similar, Brant. But I think this is the draft, and you tell me if you feel the same way about this that I do. This year's rookie skill position class feels very much like you don't necessarily have to jump for certain players because it is deep and there's value in every round here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the class like I addressed the situation I needed to, but you don't have to. You can really go BPA because there's plenty of opportunity for a lot of these skill position players. Unless you're in dire need of a spot, I don't think you need to jump for anybody. You can really go BPA, or if you're not comfortable with BPA, this is a draft that you could really move out of your pick and pick up a few more so you can get a couple more dart throws, as we would call them, in the second and third round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And again, in my opinion, mock drafts, I can do those all day long, but until I have something to lose when my pick's on the board, I don't know if I'd make the same decision I would in a mock. So we wanted to present you somewhere we actually had skin in the game, kind of show you how things went, where real people were involved with real teams that we enjoy running. So that was kind of the logic here. Brant, I know you said next week we're going to try to cover the schedules as those come out next Wednesday for the actual NFL season, maybe talk about some bye week issues where we have, some stacked teams that have buys or, just some of our favorite matchups. So be looking forward to that next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in either next week, maybe we'll throw it in, or in future weeks, we got to talk about some sleepers in this draft class that maybe we don't see in the top 3 rounds here of our drafts. So we definitely will address some sleepers that you can get in free agency, or maybe you want to take that dart throw with one of your last few picks in the 4th round. So we'll definitely talk about some of those guys as some of these drafts shape up and we get more ADP. We'll start looking at some sleepers outside of the top 3 rounds.
I think one quick thing I don't want to sell this off. There was a massive trade shakeout in the NFL today that I feel like if we don't talk about it, it's not fair. Probably should have started the show off with it. I apologize to everybody listening. Dallas Cowboys go out again and trade for a wide receiver. Last offseason with Jonathan Mingo for a 4th. This year it was George Pickens for a 3rd and a 5th from the Steelers. Fantasy-wise, Brant, I know we've kind of talked about it. Real quick here, I'm going to let you talk about your thoughts on the George Pickens trade. I'll talk about mine briefly, and then we'll get out of here for the night.
George Pickens is going to a place that actually has an established quarterback. We know who's throwing the football. You and me talked about it when DK made that trade. It was almost 2 receivers of the same skill set at the same place. Both were a little diva. Both have the diva-ish mentality. So I think this is great for Pickens to get out of there. This is a good landing spot for him. I still think, he's going to see more open targets, probably more accurate targets than he did last year. I still think this guy is still barely a fringe flex play, even in Dallas.
Yeah. So again, I'll make the same advice that I gave a near friend of mine this morning. If you own Pickens, this is your chance to trade him. Let somebody else buy into the hype. I still think CeeDee Lamb walks out of this team next year as long as he's healthy with 150 plus targets. I think Pickens' targets, like Brant mentioned, will be more valuable. I still don't see a super high ceiling for Pickens. This is a guy that in 14 games last year finished as a wide receiver 42 in PPR. So I do think he's somewhat limited. We'll see how it goes when he's not getting the lion's share of targets, when CeeDee Lamb is, if he can keep himself on the field and not checked out. I do think it's a massive upgrade honestly, I think it's an upgrade for Pickens because, again, we don't know who the quarterback is in Pittsburgh, but I don't think it's going to be enough that he's going to be super, super valuable. I think it's an upgrade for CeeDee Lamb. It pulls, double coverage off of him, and it does give Dak another viable target. So I think Dak could bounce back for fantasy. And again, I will say also, I think it's a win for DK because I think it makes DK the clear number one in Pittsburgh if they do ever get a quarterback. But yeah, I will say that I think if you can trade Pickens, I don't advocate giving them away, but if you can get a decent trade off somebody that buys into the hype, I think it's time to do that.
Calvin Austin becomes a little more interesting to talk about moving forward this offseason as he could easily slide into that number 2 role. You still have Freiermuth there, but
I think it's Roman Wilson who was injured last year. That's my flag plant. We'll talk about that on another episode, Brant. Another day, another time.
Absolutely. I think that wraps it up for us. Thanks for joining us with our drafts. As always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.